Hey, it's Jang here from UltimateRC.com, and this is a look at the team-associated RC10 B4.1 Brushless, ready-to-run, two-wheel drive, off-road RC buggy. Kind of a mouthful, but hopefully it's worth it in the end. I first tested the RC10 B4, the original version, in 2003 when it first came out. It was my very first full vehicle review. Surprisingly, very little has changed on the chassis and design of this thing since then. However, in every single IFMAR World Championship since that time, a B4 has come out on top. Now this here ready-to-run version doesn't have all of the fancy high-end aluminum and carbon fiber stuff, but most of the components come from the same molds as the highest-end versions of the kit. These shocks have aluminum bodies, though they're not threaded on the outside, and you do have multiple mounting positions top and bottom. You also have adjustable turnbuckles all the way around, including the ability to change your camber link length and your roll centers. And that goes for both the front and the rear suspension. The chassis layout of the B4 is nothing special these days. Plastic tub, battery down the middle. The speed controller on the brushless RTR is a sensorless only unit, and it has programmable drag brake and starting punch. You can also disable reverse for racing. It's LiPo compatible supposedly up to 3S, but word on the street is that 3S is really pushing it. You want to keep it to 2. The motor is rated at 3300 kV and it's in a standard 540 sized can, but it's not particularly powerful for its size. Most of the time it'll peak out at 50 to 60 amps. The transmission has an externally adjustable slipper clutch that's very easy to access through this little removable rubber port, and the ready-to-run car comes with a sealed gear differential. For wheels and tires up front, they give you a 4-rib design, though this uses the older style of wheels with bearings inside of the hubs, as opposed to the more modern 12mm hex design. The rear tires have small square pins with wider bars in the middle, but though the tires all look good, the rubber compound leaves a lot to be desired. It's soft, but not sticky. The radio is a 2.4 GHz unit. It's pretty simple and straightforward with analog trims and steering dual rate. An included parts bag has some very useful tools, including a camber gauge, and they also give you 3 foam battery spacers. Because the B4.1 is a race-bred car, I had to of course run it on a race track. There had been some rain, so the track wasn't in tip-top shape, but it was still more than good enough to get a good baseline. The first 2 things that struck me about this car were that A, it flies very nicely through the air, and B, the stock servo is terrible. So slow. It took at least a half a pack to just start to get used to having to initiate my turns a foot or 2 early. Correcting the car by countersteering when the rear end got a little bit squirrely was also pretty much an exercise in futility. Looking past that, the stock RTR tires were also pretty frustrating in that they just didn't give you good grip in any direction. Most of the time the car really wanted to oversteer from the rear, but at any speed over about 5 miles per hour it would get so much understeer from the front that it would just kind of work itself out. While on the subject of speed, I should mention that this topped out at 29 miles per hour. That was on flat ground with a 2S LiPo pack, and the stock gearing which left the motor temperature very comfortable even after a full pack of running. The stock suspension setup actually felt really good. The spring and dampening rates were pretty well matched and it felt like it was within a good ballpark. Overall, the chassis felt very stable and well composed, but the stock tires were just ruining the day. Now, since this is an RTR, I didn't want to just run it on the track. I was surprised to find that on a more natural, open off-road driving surface, the B4 again felt like it was pretty well composed and it was just held back by the tires. I loosened the slipper clutch up a little bit, but it was still important to go really soft and easy from slow speed sections to pick up the speed. Out here, the sluggishness of the stock steering servo didn't really bother me so much. If anything, it may have actually made the drive a little bit easier by smoothing out the steering inputs. Just as an experiment that I fully expected to end poorly, I took the B4 over to some rougher terrain. This is stuff that a little 1/10 scale buggy really should not be on. The ground clearance is low, the tires are small and low profile, and the suspension range of motion is limited. Well, the B4 wasn't happy over here, but it handled it. For a sleek racing-styled buggy, this is really better than you could ever ask for this style of terrain. The low center of gravity, long suspension arms, and excellent weight distribution all work together to keep this thing pretty stable. Alright, back to the track, this time with some decent tires. Here I'm running Proline M3 compound hole shots on the rear and scrubs up front. I also ran a full pack with this setup through our indoor track, though I didn't get any video of that. The indoor track is smooth, damp clay. What a difference a set of tires makes. This was now starting to feel like the RC10 B4 that most of the world has come to love. This is how a racing buggy should behave, raring to go yet confident and collected. Again, the track wasn't in its best shape here because everybody was running on the indoor layout, and my driving skills, especially while filming, still leave a bunch to be desired. Even so, the brilliance of this World Championship racing platform was definitely shining through. It made me want to beat the crap out of it? Well, that was uncomfortable, but not for naught. In one of those crashes, I broke a front turnbuckle, just snapped it right in two, the metal, not the plastic ball end. On another occasion, it was the rear that snapped, and this time it was the plastic ball end and not the metal. These have been well-known areas of weakness on the lower spec associated buggies since at least the B3. Titanium turnbuckles and RPM rod ends are the answer. To sum up my personal thoughts on the RC10 B4.1 Brushless ready to run, this is a good buggy. The stock tires are poor and the servo is too slow, but everything else is pretty good. In terms of value, well, this is a $250 ready to run set. Now for pure bashers who just want to get that buggy look and style, I think you can get a lot more bang for your buck with some of the smaller brands. More speed, similar durability, lower price. However, if you have a racetrack in your area and you think you will ever go to it to at least practice on, maybe even race every once in a while, this is a great place to start. It's not as great of a place to start as the factory team or the newer Worlds kit, but it's cheaper and it gets you started more quickly. As your driving skills improve, you can similarly improve the car. It's not at all difficult or a stretch to turn this ready-to-run car into the exact same RC10 B4.1 World Championship Edition vehicle that Ryan Cavallari took to victory in Finland in 2011. You would end up changing out probably every single part on the vehicle to get to that point, but it can be done. More importantly, you can make just small changes that are not going to be that expensive and dramatic, and have yourself a car that will be very, very, very competitive on a club level. I loved the RC10 B4 back in 2003, and I still like it to this day. The ready-to-run brushless version gives you a respectable starting point for folks just getting into the buggy world, and it's ready and able to grow with you. That's it from me for now. If you have any questions or comments about the B4 or other 1/10 scale buggies, be sure to post them up in the 1/10 scale Stadium Trucks and Buggies forum at ultimaterc.com. I hope to see you there, and I'll talk to you again soon.